Hi everyone, hope you're all doing really well, and if you were celebrating, had a nice festive period. We're heading rapidly towards the end of the new year, so I thought I'd finish off with something a bit bright and cheerful because the weather here has been quite cloudy and gloomy and damp and dismal. So I thought I'd do something with a bit of colour. I love colour, and so I thought I'd explore warm and cool colours, well, sort of warm and cool colours, some greens and blues and some pinks, oranges and yellows from my Qor watercolours today. So I have got the high chroma and the earth colour set in this palette, and I decided that I would use my Khadi Fatbook, which is one of my favourite books to play around in, especially with abstracts and watercolours, and I used the blue Scotch tape to sort of I can't think of the words, to make a grid of 4 squares. I thought that would make a little bit of a change, and I decided that I would do 2 of the squares, rough squares, in greens and blues, and the other 2 squares in warmer tones to have a little look. Now I started off, I had the idea I was doing wet into wet, and with the top left hand square I did actually put water down before I applied the paint. Then I forgot that that was what I was doing, but it does make a quite interesting part of the video, because you can see the difference between where I put the water down first and where I didn't, the different sort of effects that you can get. The one in the top left is much more blended, much more sort of floaty and a sort of a bit gentler, but I was going for really abstract. So the colours I've used, I think, in the blues and greens were cobalt teal, green, gold, sap green and indigo. And the colours in the warm squares were quinacridone magenta, light pyrrole orange, Venetian red and quinacridone gold, I do believe. Now, this is a product I do not get out very often, and I really am going to try through 2025 to use my Neocolor 2s much more. I usually just put the colour down and then wet them to activate the colour, but today I thought I would go really sort of loose with them. So I took the colours and I dipped them directly into my very dirty water, which I probably should have made sure was clean, and I did just a sort of marks that went with the colours that were in the squares. So I did lines, I did circles, nothing sort of that was required me to think very much. I really wasn't particularly thinking, I was just trying to get some marks down because these were going into the background, and as they were slightly wet they diffused the colour and the pigment a little bit as well. So once they dry, they always seem to dry down, all sort of watercolour pigments dry down a little bit paler than the colour you put on. Now I wanted to add a bit more marks in the background, so I've gone with this stamp set. Now this stamp set I've had for a long time, and I have a feeling that it is one that's probably discontinued, but I will tell you who it is by. It's a Stampendous stamp set, and it's called Marks, and it was designed by Nathalie Kalbach. So if you want to search that up, you're more than welcome. I'm not sure it's available anymore, but I'm using archival links with sort of matching in tones to add some texture, some interest into the background of those squares. And the colours I used were, for the warm tones, I used picked raspberry and crackling campfire. One of my least used colours, actually, crackling campfire. It's not my favourite, but I thought it went with this project. And for the greens and blues, we've got faded jeans and crushed olive. And crushed olive is one of my favourite colours. So we've got those going on there now. And I decided at this point I need to remove the tape. And this is always one of my most favourite parts, because the tape revealing those crisp white edges. Well, I say crisp white edges, you will see in a moment that I did have a little bit of bleed through from the watercolour, but it was fine because it's in my Khadi Fatbook, so you know, hey ho. And then I decided I needed some collage. Now, I have a very sort of modern abstract background, but I wanted to go for some quite whimsical images because I love playing with the idea of different sort of genres or ideas within one piece. So I went for colours that matched in with the theme. So I went for reds and oranges and pinks and greens, and I wanted to go with things like the mushrooms. I love mushrooms. I really should buy the mushroom book, but I haven't. But maybe that will probably be one of my ones that I do buy this year. even though I am going to really cut back this year on the things I buy. But there are, and this is the Fairies in Bloom by Marta and Maremi Small Art, and I'll link all the channels for Marta and that in the description box. I'll link everything, and I won't link everything, I keep saying that. I will list everything in the description box below, but do please do your own research for where you purchase items if you were wanting to purchase anything, because I have no affiliate links, so nothing I link would is of extra benefit to me. So the only reason I add links is to help you to find products. So if you have a search around on the internet or in your local stores, then that's probably the best way. So I cut them all out really close to the line, and I then used the Decoart matte medium. I am really trying to get through this pot. I'm right near the bottom and it seems to be going on and on and on. I've had it for so long. And I put it underneath, on the page, on the back of the image, and then over the top to seal it. Now, when you've got water active products like the Neocolors and your watercolors, then you do need to be a little bit careful that it doesn't reactivate or lift your colour. But I usually am so quick and put not tons down, because you don't want it like all wrinkling up. So it doesn't tend to move it that much, if at all. And some water reactive products seem to react more than others. Things like distress inks are very reactive. These not so much. And so I'm adding on the green bits to the green sections and the warm colours bits to the warm colour sections, because I thought that would be something a little bit different. And where I've got that long tulip, it wasn't quite long enough to go. I wanted the head of the flower to be in the top part, so I added my green mushrooms across the bottom, so it would look like it's just part of a scene. So once I'd stuck them all down, I did go over with my heat tool to give them a little bit of a quicker dry. Although matte medium does dry reasonably quick. And the reason I choose to use matte medium is because it's quite nice and liquidy to stick your images nice and flat, especially if it's a thin paper. But also I like the matte finish. If you wanted to work on top of matte medium, it is probably best to put something like a clear gesso over it to give you that tooth again, because you can get, depending on what you're using over the top. I mean, I'm not using that much over the top, so I'm not worried. If it's your last layer, you don't need to worry about it. But if you are wanting to continue working over the top, the gesso will then help to sort of coordinate all your layers again and give you a better base to work upon. I wanted to add a little bit of shadow, so I'm using, this is a Stabilo all black pencil, and it's called Stabilo all because it goes on all different surfaces. I think it's probably something like a China graph pencil, something like that, but I have a few of the black ones. And I did that around my images, and then I wanted to add a little bit of white highlight back in, so I'm using my Posca pen. This is a 1M. It's one of my favourite ones, but you can find sometimes if you haven't let everything thoroughly dry, the pen sinks in and it looks like it's not there's no colour. So you will see me go back over some areas. You do need to make sure you really do shake these pens up properly, and you do pump them. Now, sometimes you can over pump them, and you will see that in a little while when I do a bit of a mistake on, I think it's this big mushroom here, or was it that little mushroom down there? No, it might have been that little mushroom there. Oh, I did decide I didn't like the dots as well. But if you've got matte medium down, it does give you a little bit of time to actually wipe things back off, because it's provided that sort of slight surface to the paper. So you can get away with what I just did there, which was I put the paint down, it hadn't quite dried, and I decided I didn't like the dots, so I decided to wipe them back off. And finally, I have to have sentiments on my work. I love sentiments, love words, and I'm using, this is the Tim Holtz Small Talk sticker book. You can see I have well loved those white text on black sentiments there. They are very nearly finished, which is, quite impressive for me. And now I'm just deciding where they're going to go. I usually like to have a couple close together and one a little bit further apart. I just like the way that looks. And I'm sticking them down with this normal acrylic glue. So thank you very much for watching today. If you haven't already subscribed, I'd love it if you could do that. And any thumbs ups to give me a like would be much appreciated. And I hope you continue and watch some more of my videos. So see you soon. Bye.